Okay, so this is a video then to go through the answers of Biology 4.3, DNA and Inheritance on the higher tier paper. So we're going to go through the questions. I'm going to write through the answers as I go through it. So question 1 is, a high level of blood cholesterol increases the risk of heart disease. One cause of high blood cholesterol is the inherited condition known as FH. FH is caused by a dominant allele. The recessive form of this allele results in low levels of cholesterol. State the meaning of the terms allele. So allele is the different form of the same gene. So another word we're looking at is the allele, big B, or is it a little b? Then recessive, the recessive only controls when the organism possesses two alleles. Okay, so it'll only control when we have little b, little b. Okay, question says, I complete the Punnett square below to show the possible genotypes of the children produced by parents, both of whom heterozygous. So we've got a keyword then, heterozygous. Heterozygous is when alleles are different. Okay, so if the alleles are different, both parents must be big B, little b. So that's what we're going to put into our Punnett square, and then we're going to fill it out. Okay, then the next question says, what was the probability of two heterozygous parents producing a child with FH? Okay, and if you look back at the question, it says FH is caused by a dominant allele. Okay, so we need to look down then. We have, I go different colour. This offspring's got two dominant alleles, so he's going to have it. So is this one, and so is this one. Okay, because they all contain at least one dominant allele. So probability is 75%. Then what's the phenotypic ratio for the children produced? So we have 3 with FH and we have 1 without FH. Okay, question 2 says, in mice, the allele for black colour B is dominant over the allele for white colour. 2 heterozygous mice, black mice, are mated together. They produce a litter of 8 young mice. So keyword heterozygous, which we've gone through already, is that our alleles are different. So when we are looking, both mice are big B, little b. That's what we're mated together. Which of the following results would you expect in the litter? They produced 8 young mice. That's what we have to remember. It's our key one. And in our Punnett square, we draw 4. Okay, so we would end up with, if we've got dominant, we'd end up with 6 black and 2 white. Okay, and then if we draw the Punnett square to help explain our answer, if I draw my heterozygous, big B, big B, big B, little b, big B, little b, little b, little b. Out of my 4 offspring here, I've got he'd be black, he'd be black, he'd be black, and he'd be white. So I've got 3 to 1 of black to white, but I've got 8 young mice, so I double it, so 6 black and 2 white. Then it says the sex of the mice is determined by which sex chromosomes are present. Say the sex chromosomes present in the body cells of the father and the mother. So we know sex chromosomes, and men have XY and females have XX. We have to complete the Punnett square below to show the expected sex chromosomes of the offspring in the litter. So if we've got X and Y and X and X. So if we draw our Punnett square, okay, and it'd be roughly 50%. Question 3 then. Soybean and cotton are crop plants grown in the USA. The bar chart shows the percentage of these crops grown between 1996 and 2001, which are genetically modified. What is the general trend? Does the general trend shown in the bar chart suggest about the attitude towards planting GM crops between 1996 and 2001 in the United States? So the attitude shows, as you can see, that it's accepted. It's actually quite popular. Okay, it's agreed. There's no objection. okay, because the numbers of them being planted are actually increasing. Next question is, describe how soybean plants could be made resistant to herbicide using GM crop technology. So I'm going to zoom in so I can write it, and I'm going to run out of space. So it's because the gene for herbicide resistance for bacteria can be inserted into the host plant or the crop. Okay, so that means then is that we can take the gene responsible for herbicide resistance from a bacteria or another species of plant, another organism, and we can take it, we can insert it into the host plant, and we can let that reproduce, and then we can produce plants that are resistant to herbicides. The effect of insects on the yield of cotton has been investigated for GM insect-resistant cotton plants and for non-GM cotton plants. The results are shown in the tables. 3 conclusions that can be drawn from the data in the table. So let's look. The mean number of insecticide sprays per month needed to control leaf-eating insects is 0.6 in GM and non-GM 3.7. Mean number of insecticide sprays per month needed to control sap-sucking insects, and the yield then. So we could say the biggest one that we can see, we have crop yield increased in GM crops. Okay, then we can see that GM crops are resistant to leaf-eating insects because we only have to use 0.6 of a spray per month compared to a non-GM plant. So they've obviously got some resistance to the leaf-eating insects. However, if we look then at our sap-sucking insects, we still got 3.6. That's actually more than non-cotton plants. So we can say GM crops are not resistant to sap-sucking insects. Okay. Next question then. So in mice, the allele for black eye colour B is dominant over the allele for red colour little b. What's the phenotype of each of the following mice? So we need to know phenotype, which we've gone through the start already, and it is our physical characteristic. Okay. Physical characteristic. So mouse 1, I'm just going to zoom in. If he's big B, okay, his phenotype, his physical appearance, he's going to have black eyes. Big B, little b, he's also going to have black eyes because he's got at least one dominant allele. Okay, he has that dominant allele. Next one, little b, big B, again, doesn't matter which way round it goes, because he contains the dominant allele, he is going to have black eyes. And then little b, because he hasn't got the dominant allele, we are going to have red eyes. And it says, if mouse 1 and 4 were mated together and had 12 offspring, how many of these would you expect to have black eyes? And it says, complete the Punnett square below to help you explain your answer. So I'm going to do that first. Okay, so mouse 1 was big B, so big B, and mouse 4, big B. No, little b. So I'm going to produce my Punnett square. And it says, if the 12 offspring, how many would have black eyes? Well, they'd all would have black eyes. And they'd all have black eyes because they all contain at least one dominant allele. So if there is 12, all 12 would have black eyes. Okay, then it says, if mouse 2 and mouse 4 mated together and had 50 offspring over several litters, how many of their offspring would you expect to have red eyes? Number of red eyes, and then complete the Punnett square to help you explain your answer. So I'm going to quickly go through. Mouse number 2, he was big B, little b, and mouse number 4 was our little b, little b. Okay, I would go back, but it messes up the recording, but I can remember. So if I fill out my Punnett square, we end up with, if we look here, I have 1 with black eyes, second with black eyes, and then I have 2 with red eyes. So I have 50-50. So if we have 50 offspring to start with, then, okay, at the end, we're going to end up with 25 with red eyes, literally half of them. If mouse 2 and mouse 3 were mated together and had 48 offspring over several litters, the expected Mendelian ratio is 3:1 for 2 black eyes. Suggest one reason why the expected ratio does not always occur in practice, and the reason would be mutations, okay, for it not to actually go. Last question then is, Mrs. Hughes is a well-known breeder of both yellow and black Labradors. The allele for black coat, big B, is dominant to the allele for yellow coat. Mrs. Hughes finds it easier to sell black Labrador puppies because they are more popular. She does, however, produce yellow Labrador puppies when there is a demand for them. Mrs. Hughes has recently bought a black Labrador dog because it has many of the features which judges look for in show dogs, but she does not know its genotype. Take the meaning of the term genotype. Okay, so genotype is the set of alleles an organism possesses, or has, we could say. Okay, so for example, it's either going to be big B, big B, big B, little b, or little b, little b. They're the only 3 genotypes that we can have when we're looking. We can change the letters, but they're the 3 combinations. Then it says, Mrs. Hughes wants to breed from the black Labrador she has just bought, but needs to know its genotype. How can she find out its genotype? Give a full explanation of the cross she would carry out and find the expected results. So what she would need to do, she would need to breed the black Labrador with a yellow lab. Okay, and the reason that is the yellow lab is recessive, homozygous recessive, so the yellow lab has got 2 little b's. Okay, and then if offspring were all black, the lab would be big B, big B. So if they mated them together and the black lab and the yellow lab only had black puppies, we would know the black lab is homozygous dominant because he's passed on a dominant gene to all of the offspring. That's why they're all black. If the offspring were yellow, the lab, or the black lab, would be big B, little b. And the reason that is then is because then that recessive allele the lab has can be passed on to give some yellow puppies. So if we look at the 2 combinations, there's our black lab, that's homozygous dominant, mated with our yellow lab. And as we have said, if we breed them all together, we are only going to get black puppies. We only get black puppies because it's passing on the dominant allele. Okay. However, then, if our black lab is heterozygous and we mated him with the yellow lab, we would then end up with 50% of the labs being yellow in colour, and then Mrs. Hughes would know that the lab is heterozygous. And that's it. Thank you.